Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1170B and today's date is January 5th, 2017 and the title of the episode is The Elite Are Going All Out, National Emergency and War. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Well, it looks like fake news is everywhere now, not just here in the United States. And we see out in Italy, Pepe Grillo, founder of Italy's five-star anti-Euro movement, well, he's lashing out at the country's journalists for manufacturing false news, accusing them of fabricating stories to keep the 5 stars down. And he's calling for a popular jury to determine the veracity of news published. And he wants public apologies from the corporate media. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that the U.S. government, Obama, central bankers, the corporate media, they're all out there saying we need to stop fake news. We need to stop all these individuals reporting on fake news. And what we're starting to realize, since they've mentioned fake news, they've been dishing out more fake news than ever before. And what is happening is people are pointing it out. I mean, think about what the Washington Post has put out there. A cyber attack against the Vermont electrical grid. Then they retracted the story. CNN using fake images from video games, then retracting it. And we've seen a lot more fake news in the past where they push stories written by the CIA, by the government, and it's pushed out into the media. I mean, almost everything about Obamacare was completely fake because everything that happened was the complete opposite. So what we're really seeing is they're calling attention to themselves, where everyone now, at every turn, they're saying, where are the facts? And the biggest fake news right now is the Russian hacking, of course. But we can see that the establishment and the elite, well, they haven't given up trying to get rid of Trump. And they're not going to give up. Their next move right now, as we know, Congress is going to count those electoral college votes January 6th. And we see an organization called America's Take Action. Well, they're out there saying that 50 electoral college members who voted for Donald Trump, they were ineligible to serve as presidential electors because they did not live in the congressional districts they represented or held elective office in states legally barring dual office holders. Now, they put out a 1,000-plus page legal briefing, and they're presenting it, saying that this entire election should be null and void. He's calling these 50 electors 50 illegal electors. And this is coming from Ryan Clayton of America's Take Action. And he says that puts Donald Trump below the threshold that he needs to be elected president. Now, he says, according to the Constitution, the Congress, if nobody wins on the first round of balloting, picks from the top 3 candidates. He says the top 3 are Hillary, Donald, and Colin Powell. So we see right now that the establishment and the elite, they are still trying to get rid of Trump. And if they still can't get rid of him, I mean, think about all the things they've done already. They started off with the protests once Donald Trump was elected. Now, I'm not for Donald Trump. I am for a person that will run this country for the people. Now, Donald Trump is not even in the White House yet, so we don't know what his leadership is like just yet. But what we're seeing is they're doing whatever they possibly can. Now, they had the protests right after Donald was elected. Then we had Jill Stein come up and say, listen, we need a recount. But she had like 1% of the vote. So why did she need the recount? Why did she have to raise all this money? Well, she probably pocketed a lot of it. And the recount was to hold back a lot of the electoral votes. It didn't work. Then they came up with the story about Russian hacking, hoping that enough electors would question how the election was held and how it was won. Well, that didn't work, and the CIA backed off giving the electors an intel briefing at all. And we see this is the next phase. While this is going on with saying that there's 50 electors that are illegal, they're continuing with the Russian hacking. They're trying many different plans all at once to get this whole entire election null and void. Now, if they can't do that, they're going to bring out the big guns. They're going to go for it all. And this is something that we need to watch. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the report about what happened with the intelligence briefing that was held today and what is going to happen tomorrow with Trump. And I wanted to go over a little bit about this, but let's get into what is happening out in Libya, which is very interesting because the UN-backed government of National Accord, this is the government that the United States and the coalition forces put together with the UN and said, here, people, this is your new government. You'll have no elections whatsoever. We put it together for you. No, that's not democracy. That's not freedom. Well, they're calling in Russia to help out with what is going on inside of Libya. Because what's happening is the UN-backed government, they're being pushed out. And we see the people's government there. Well, they've already called on Russia to help out. And we could see that the UN-backed government, they want some type of political dialogue. And they want Russia to help out in this situation. I think Russia is going to look at the situation and say, well, this was a UN government. The people didn't have a vote on who they wanted. So you guys are out, and we should have some type of an election. But I don't think the UN government is going to go, the UN-backed government is going to go with that. But we'll see what happens. We see out in Iraq, we see the U.S. troops, they are joining the fight in Mosul, and we know that the Iraqi armed forces, they have captured about 60% of Mosul right now. And we see the U.S. is getting involved to really screw things up. And of course, the United Nations is warning that 13,000 civilians will be fleeing Mosul. But this is what the United States does. They get involved, they try to maneuver the Iraqi army in a certain direction while they're telling the Islamic State here, escape, escape, escape. And we can see right now that I don't think Iraq really needs the help of the U.S. Actually, if the U.S. just took their paid mercenary force and they removed them from Iraq, they wouldn't have a problem, except for those individuals who don't want the puppet government. We see the Islamic State, which is the paid mercenary army controlled by the United States government central bankers. They are massing a very large force inside Deir ez-Zor, and they are preparing for a major offensive in this area. So we can see right now that the central bankers, well, they haven't given up. The elite, they haven't given up. The neocons, they haven't given up. They are still pushing forward with their goals. And you have to remember something very important. They will continually push their goals into the very end. No matter how many people die, they don't care. As long as they reach their goals, they don't give up. Well, it looks like Russia, or I should say Putin, finally did it. He convinced Turkey, Erdogan, to change his mind. Turkey's deputy prime minister, well, he has already hinted that his country could take a different direction to its Syria policy, and this policy existed since 2011, where they wanted to remove Assad. That's what he's talking about. He's saying that, it's not right for us to impose any decision on the Syrian people of who they want as their leader, and maybe the people should decide who should be their leader. And what this tells us is that Turkey is moving closer to Russia and further away from the United States. And this is why we're seeing the terror attacks inside of Turkey, because the United States government, the CIA, the central bankers, the elite, they're sending Erdogan a message. And I could see right now, they're continually doing this, and it might turn into something much, much larger, because right now, Turkey has said to the United States, we don't want your air support anymore. We're going to use Russian air support. So when we attack alongside the Russian forces and the Syrian forces, we're going to have Russian air support. So right now, Turkey is going in a completely different direction. And we'll have to see the next move of the elite and what they do to Turkey to try to pull Erdogan back or get rid of Erdogan. And we could see this is why they had the coup d'etat back in August. They knew that Erdogan was moving closer and closer to Russia. Many countries are at this point, because they realize that, listen, the end is near. We better move to those powers that are economically sound, who can bring revenue into the country and support the country. And this is what we're seeing right now. Now, today, we had the intelligence briefing with Congress. John McCain, he headed it up, and he opened the hearing by noting that the goal of the day was not to question the outcome of the presidential election, but to gather facts about what happened, even though there were no facts actually out there whatsoever. And James Clapper, who testified about 30 minutes into the hearing, told the Senate committee that he had no intention of providing any meaningful new details regarding the Russian hacking, but instead intended to just repeat the same useless political rhetoric that has been slowly leaked to the mainstream media, that Russia is a threat, Russia is attacking, and that's pretty much it. So we know that the CIA, the FBI, DHS, they've been telling us about Russian hacking since before the election. Here we are in January. They should have all that information together. There should be no delays at all. But we see that they did delay because they were supposed to have a briefing with Trump on Wednesday, and they decided to delay it until tomorrow, which is Friday. And very interestingly, we see that Senator Schumer, says Donald Trump is really dumb for picking a fight with the intelligence officials, suggesting that they have ways of striking back. He says, let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Now let's think about what he just said here. They must have something on him because he knows about this. Secondly, is this a threat to Donald Trump that the intelligence agencies would actually do something to the President of the United States? Because it does sound like this. Don't these agencies fall under the President? They do. Now, hacker Guccifer, who is in prison right now for hacking, his real name is Marcel Lehia Lazar, he's known as Guccifer, says that there's no way that Russia did any hacking whatsoever. He says this is completely fake. Now, Obama is receiving an intelligence briefing today about the Russian hacking, and Trump is going to receive it tomorrow. I'm surprised they didn't do it at the same exact time, and most likely there's a reason for this. What it seems to me that they're doing at this point is they're setting Trump up. Because we know that Putin didn't hack the election. He didn't make Trump win. We know that Putin didn't hack into the DNC, into the election system, because if he truly did, all that evidence would be posted all over the place. They wouldn't be playing these games. You wouldn't need to, because you'd have the truth in your hands. You just present it. Look what we have. And for them to present something, they would have to show how they bounced the attack off all of these different IPs and how it leads back to Russia and actually leads back to the government of Russia. Do you know how difficult that is? I mean, if they can do that, they can stop all spam email coming to your inbox. And if you notice, spam email just keeps on pouring in. But what they're doing right now, it looks like they are desperate. They're caught in their lies. And of course, they never can tell the truth, so they're going to lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. And I think what they're trying to do is box Trump in right now. They're trying to start a war with Russia. They want a war started, I believe, before Obama leaves office. Now, is this going to happen? We don't know. But they're going to give it the old try here. We know that Obama recalled all the U.S. Aircraft carriers back to the United States. Now, many people say this is kind of strange. He only has about 2.5 weeks left in office, and it's a strange thing to do. Many people say, well, this is a setup. It's almost like Pearl Harbor. Or are they reloading these ships for war and then going to send them back out? So whichever way you look at it, it's still a strange instance of what they're doing right now, especially at this point in time. We see McCain is out there, and he's screaming that, well, if Russia cyber attacked us, and of course he has no evidence whatsoever because his hearings provided absolutely nothing. It was just speeches that just rambled on about nothing. He's saying, well, this is an act of war then. We need to go after Russia. Well, you know what? He can be on the front lines. Let him go to war. But what's very interesting about all of this is that the CIA, the FBI, they're relying on a third-party investigation. The FBI did not examine the hacked DNC servers. They relied on a company called CrowdStrike for analysis. No U.S. intelligence agency conducted a forensic examination of the servers. Don't you find that strange? How they didn't do any of this? And we know right now that Trump is going to revamp the intelligence agencies. We know that Director Clapper, he's going to be removed. I think he's already getting ready to replace him with someone else. And he's going to downsize their structure. He's saying they're too political. They're not really fighting crime. They're not really checking into anything. They're creating more problems than what they're actually supposed to be doing. And we all know this. They're behind a lot. And we can see right now that they're continually pushing the idea, and they're not going to let up, that Russia is coming after us. I mean, look what they're doing. We're bringing troops out to the border of Russia. They're sending in special forces in Lithuania right up to the border of Kaliningrad, that whole entire area, because Russia is placing missiles on their soil. They're preparing to go to war. Now, we know they want this war. We know the economy is collapsing. We know they don't have that much time left. We know they're going to use cyber attacks. Cyber attacks to me is almost like terrorism. Oh, the terrorists are coming after us. Well, where are they? We don't have to prove that. They're just coming. Cyber attacks are pretty much the same thing. And I will give them that it's a pretty darn good way of creating a false flag, because in reality, you don't have to prove anything unless someone says, prove it. But otherwise, the intelligence agencies can just tell you that, yeah, the financial institutions, they were cyber attacked. The power grid was cyber attacked. And we know who did it. And most of the country will believe this. Now, of course, Trump is digging into this, saying, I need hard evidence. And of course, this is where the problem comes in. Just like I need hard evidence that terrorists did something. And I'm not talking about those passports that fall on the ground. So what we're seeing right now is they're doing everything they possibly can to get this war started and maybe declare a national emergency. Because again, they're racing against the clock. Now, if they can't keep Trump from being inaugurated, they're going to box him in. Because if they start something with Russia, because they know at this point, they've tried many, many times, Putin is not going to do anything. He's going to sit back. They might do it for him, what I mean by this is that the intelligence agencies, Obama, they might create a false flag where they'll blame it on Russia. Even though Russia didn't do anything, they might go as far as this. And it might be something very small, where they say the war is on. Now, we know the president cannot declare war. Congress has to declare war. But he can declare a national emergency. And if he can get it that far, well, he might be able to keep Trump out of office. Now, is this going to happen? No, I think they're going to try. I think they have many plans. But as we can see, most of their plans do not work. And I think they're going to get so desperate that they're just going to go for it. Lights out, war, national emergency, because their backs are really against the wall right now. They're running out of time. And you can see that they're not going to give up. So everyone, be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.